know, photographers do these jobs to stay behind the camera. Yeah, man, you can tell we're a bunch of goobers that don't, don't like to be in front of the camera, man.
I hate this color.
Which one am I looking at? Is that one there?
We're all eccentrics. I'm like, are you still, you rolling? Okay.
Okay, just straight in this. Okay, perfect.
Here's your transition shot.
I'm a photojournalist here, sometimes describing to it. We'll say photographer, we'll say videographer, and I think a photojournalist really captures the work we do. That looks super nice though.
I am a multimedia journalist, I am a reporter, and I'm a photographer. I do everything. I honestly don't like being on the camera that much at all. I can do it, but to me, the less you see of me is the more you get to hear of somebody else.
It's not about us, you know, it's about the people that deserve to have their stories told.
There's no story too small for us to ignore, and everyone has an aspect of life that matters.
It's extremely rewarding for me, just helping those people in the community, highlighting all those people and their stories and doing the best that we can for them. That's the reward, and that's why we do it.
I'm grateful that our station really, you know, focuses on is the people, even though I'm like on camera right now, talking about myself.
One of the highest honors I can get is when I go to a story and I'm interacting with kids, which I think is really important to do. And a little boy or girl says, "See you later, camera girl." That's the highest honor for me. It's the coolest thing to be called that.
No, this was the first time coming here, and I mean, you can tell this is such a place of honor. As soon as you come here, it's just such a place of reverence as well. You just come and it's just the sounds of the fountain. There's just kind of a peace to it. And I remember thinking, like, it's kind of wild that the National D-Day Memorial is in such a small town, you know, but then you understand the connection that this small town has to D-Day and how much D-Day affected this small town. It makes sense, and I couldn't think of a better place for this place to be in terms of honoring those that went on that important day, you know. Yeah, a bit of a drive, about 2.5 hours, but you know, it's one of those things where 2 hours is nothing to tell a story like this.
But on June 6, 1944, the soldiers would spearhead the invasion of Normandy. 19 Bedford boys from A Company were either dead or missing. Another Bedford man in a different unit was also killed. It was the largest per capita loss for one town in America.
And knowing that, you know, I'm doing my small part to immortalize those stories, I guess, in a way. You know, it'll always be on the internet forever. You know, it's like 2.5 hours to drive to do this story is nothing. And being very nervous about it because this is a very important story to tell, and making sure that you're doing it right and telling it with respect as well. Because this is such a small, tight-knit community, and it affected that community in ways I can't even imagine.
Never fully recovering from losing her second son.
My mother, till her dying day, never quit talking about Jack. She just felt like a part of her died when Jack died. That took a toll on her.
The impact of D-Day on such a small community with a National Guard unit having 20 people killed, I think is really poignant.
Printed out photos of the 20 Bedford boys and found each grave and placed those photos there to have that face for the viewer to kind of connect with. It's just a bit more powerful to see the faces, as you know, and put the faces to the names, and to understand that these were young boys that went over there to fight and die for our country. I remember her just going through all of the personal effects that he had, and it's just really powerful to hear that connection that she had with him while barely even knowing him. You know, she was such a little girl at that time, and it's hard to keep it together during interviews like this, because it is so personal, and you can tell that the love that she had for her brother that she barely knew. And it's one of those things where, you know, I might be behind the camera, but I mean, it affected me as well, just hearing her talk about finding the news and that her brother had passed, and how much it really affected her mother too. I believe she said that her mother never fully recovered from it, and that's just something that I can't imagine. You know, Hollywood is actors, you know, but these are real people that we're meeting and hearing these stories from, and I've always felt that, you know, these are real stories. Like, history to me is always much more engaging and compelling than fiction. And so I've always gravitated towards longer form stories, and so having the opportunity to work on a story like this is incredibly rewarding. Like I said, it's my small part to play in keeping this history alive, and hopefully sharing a story that people may never have heard of before. And I think that's really important.
We can tell you that the one shot was heard coming from the woods behind the Ponderosa restaurant.
The mere mention of DC snipers, it immediately, there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I remember that happening.
In October of 2002, police and federal agents were searching for a serial sniper.
2002, I was in 4th grade when that happened, so I do remember the news coverage, even though I was all the way in Indiana.
You're watching the News 6 Network.
We can tell you that the one shot was heard coming from the woods behind the Ponderosa restaurant at about 8 o'clock this evening.
It was just one of those things that just kind of remember seeing on the news when you were younger.
While walking across the parking lot of the Ponderosa Steakhouse in Ashland, a Florida man named Jeffrey Hopper was shot in the abdomen and critically wounded, an attack that bore all the hallmarks of the serial sniper.
We are acting as if it is. We will continue on that mode until we know that it is not.
It was one of those, just looking back, that it had been so long that people were willing to speak.
As the shootings continued, it looked like the jurisdictions hadn't had a whole lot of cooperation with each other. So I called Dave and said, Dave, we need to get a plan together.
Especially with the law enforcement, sometimes aren't typically eager to go back and look back on things from in these kind of cases, which makes sense.
I tell you, it was a lot of good police work done.
But just through the relationships with our reporters that they had with them, that they knew that, you know, we were gonna be fair and really just try to tell the story of what happened.
At the time, Colonel Stuart Cook was the sheriff of Hanover County.
Everybody was on edge. It was frightening times. I mean, as I said, for everybody, law enforcement included.
Looking back on that and just really highlighting the awesome work that the law enforcement did to stop these guys in the end.
And he made it known his team was going to operate differently.
We weren't going to do what they were doing in Northern Virginia. That if we have something to give you that will help us clear this case and put the citizens at ease, we're going to give it to you. But until then, we're not coming back out here and talking to you every 30 to 45 minutes just to have a dog and pony show.
The main takeaway should have been how impactful, you know, Hanover Sheriff's Department and our local law enforcement here in our area was to a giant national case like that, you know, FBI was working on, everyone was working on around the clock, and it really came down to just the great police work that they did here in our local area, and the people that are serving us helped in a case that big, and it really paid off in the end.
From the bullet shell casing to a letter from the snipers that had been found tacked to a tree, the evidence found outside the Ponderosa would prove critical to solving this case and later prosecuting Muhammad and Malvo. That's why Cook and his deputies processed everything.
It was September 19th, just after 4 in the morning.
We have a lot of archival tapes of so many things that have happened, and it's interesting that, you know, sometimes even within our own station, people don't really realize how the scale and magnitude of the things that we cover on a daily basis. It might just be another day at the office for us, but I mean, these things, it lasts forever because we're capturing it now, and like that'll be there years and years from now. The big thing was we had so much archival footage to look through, and so with that, it was just try to figure out a way of how to go through and show all the best stuff, and this was the one thing that came up with as far as working this monitor and putting the video into that and going back to the scenes of like where this video was originally captured from. So just going all over the place, multiple locations in our viewing area there in Ashland, Henrico, here in Petersburg, just really retracing the steps of, you know, former photojournalists before us that had shot this video that was all there for us because it was already captured by our journalist. Because that's all it was just kind of moving this around like this, putting the footage in there in post. So I really was just walking around the streets in the dark with a TV monitor like a crazy person.
2 decades have now passed since the Ponderosa shooting, but Cook and Hines still vividly recall how their deputies and their community responded with vigilance.
And we try to take, you know, everything we work on as seriously as possible, but this was one obviously that, you know, the mere like mention of DC snipers, it immediately, like, there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I remember that happening, and it just makes sure that we, you know, did it as correctly and like thoroughly as possible.
Everybody was saying thank you for what you're doing. They were thanking law enforcement officers for shutting an interstate down, because that was the fear that had gone across the entire East Coast.
It was called like the Girls on Fire firefighter camp.
I'd just say this is a really amazing camp.
And it was just a camp that was getting girls interested in the career of firefighting because it's a male-dominated field and they want to show women that they could do it too. And so you had these young girls taking part of this camp, getting on the fire engines, using the tools, working the hoses.
Up, down, up, down, up, down. Pull it. Left, right, left, right, left, right. Swirl, swirl.
It was a NAT package. So when you think of a typical story, you have the interviewee who you're speaking with, who the subject of the story is about, and then you have a reporter's voice carrying the story along, kind of the glue that puts all these pieces together. But a NAT package or a natural sound package, that's when you just rely on the interviews. You just rely on the voices and the people that you speak with to tell the story without the reporter being involved at all. And those are some of my favorite ones to put together because it's an opportunity to take a step back and let someone else tell their own story. And there was this little girl, and man, as soon as I saw her like trying to tighten these pipes to stop this water leak.
There you go, good job.
I was holding one side with a wrench and I was tightening the other.
And how enthusiastic she was, I was energized. And I was like, that's the girl that I want to speak with. I think she's gonna tell this story the best way. And she just lit the whole thing up. I mean, she just knocked that interview out of the park.
Too, I like getting wet, as you can tell, and so I felt like I was really out in the field. But then also, if I was stressed out, I could just be like, oh, I'm right here.
And my favorite part about the interview was, I asked her, I said, well, you know, you've taken part of this camp for a couple days. Do you want to be a firefighter now? And she was like, no, I don't want to be a firefighter.
Even if you don't want to be a firefighter when you grow up, it's amazing to see other women doing this sort of thing and people in general. And it's cool to be like, oh, wow, I could do this if I wanted. This is amazing, you know?
Now I know that this could be something I could do. It not only touched me when she said that, but it touched a lot of the people who were organizing the camp. They're like, that's the whole reason why we're doing it, is because we're inspiring these little girls. And even though she didn't necessarily want to become a firefighter in that moment, you gave her an experience she's never going to forget. And I guarantee of the 60 girls that were at that camp, one of them got the bug in them to do that. And it was just such a fun story to put together. The audience, you're really bringing them into that situation that they didn't get to be a part of. And if you do it the right way, you make it feel like they were right there. And when you do a NAT package or a natural sound package, it really, I think it allows the viewer to be immersed in someone else's story in a way that you can't do with a traditional story. It was just the organizers of the camp and this little girl, and I let them tell the story with the sights and sounds. Still one of my favorite ones that I've done to this day, and I'm really glad it came out the way it did. And yeah, I gave her a voice.
It is so fun.
You know, I'm sure she'll remember that for the rest of her life.
I mean, as a photog, you're just looking to paint a picture of the story you're presenting.
Taking in the sights.
The water's not the same color as the trees.
Through a viewfinder at Pocahontas State Park.
So we did a story about these new viewfinders at state parks in Virginia that allow folks who are colorblind, they look through them and then suddenly they can see the fall foliage just like everyone else. So as a photog, you're like, well, what am I going to do here? And so, you know, we were able to use some photos that they provided us to kind of show the difference. And in editing, you can kind of go, you know, this is what they're seeing. The reaction of the folks when they first look in the viewfinder and they're like, what?
Okay, that's cool.
Is that yellow on the middle of that kayak?
That's incredible.
You get to kind of like be there and be part of this little moment of joy with them. You know, it's a simple thing, just looking through a viewfinder and seeing, you know, the colors of canoes and the river and the trees. But for them, it's like Christmas morning.
And we'll be able to benefit and encourage people to come see the world in a whole new light.
Definitely need to get out more. It's pretty significant, for me at least.
One of my favorite ones that I did with Greg was the 100th anniversary of Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
With a name, he died for freedom. Now nameless, he will live as freedom's hero.
We went to Arlington and we got to highlight the power of that place if you walk in there and just experience that. We got to be there at sunrise.
That first light of every morning and how the sunlight strikes the tomb and what happens there. It's mystical.
And speaking with a former Tomb Guard member who still feels so passionately about it to this day, and that it had been going on for 100 years. It was just a really cool thing to highlight.
John Kennedy, and that's me standing right behind him. Even to this day, it's emotional because he was my hero. He was a hero to my generation.
You know, not everybody will get to make a trip like that and be there and see those things, and then we're showing it to them and really highlighting those people.
It's been put in our hands, that trust. America trusts us to make sure that the sacred duty is fulfilled completely, fully, forever.
There's a lot at stake when you receive a rescue call. It's an emergency and you have to respond and do your best job to not only arrive with a sense of urgency, but also a level of calm to reassure people that they're going to be okay. And in this moment, they were okay because the team saved their lives ultimately. Because news happens everywhere, it can happen anywhere, and sometimes these things happen 5 minutes away from our station, and sometimes they happen 2 hours away.
Reedville, Northumberland County is a kind of farm community. It's a small area.
2 hours out from Richmond is the Smith Point Sea Rescue, and they're located in Reedville, Virginia, right on the coast by the Chesapeake Bay.
We have a very dedicated group on Smith Point Sea Rescue.
Which is a group of volunteer sea rescue people, men and women, who really care about saving lives out on the water.
When I heard people in the water, I dropped everything, jumped in my car and came.
This group of volunteers I got to spend the day with were so sweet, and they're a little bit older because they volunteer now. Some of them are retired, and I thought they just had completely infectious personalities. And then we took a tour of the boat. So we drove to their liftoff and got ready to go. Seatbelts on, you know, life vests on, and showed us around on the water. And they walked us through kind of the day-to-day of when they receive a call, what that looks like for them. the level of urgency that they have, the level of calmness that they have, and they walked us through what that means to be doing their job. There's a lot at stake when you receive a rescue call. It's an emergency and you have to respond and do your best job to not only arrive with a sense of urgency, but also a level of calm to reassure people that they're going to be okay. And in this moment, they were okay because the team saved their lives ultimately. So something you have to consider when you're sharing a story is when it happened. So when we arrived to meet the sea rescue team, they had already saved these people's lives. They've been recovering and doing well. And you have to ask yourself as the photographer, as you create this story, is how can I share it in a way that reflects what actually happened, even though it already did happen. So for this story, my reporter and I, Greg, were thinking about ways we could bring that back to life and showcase what happened without us having been there. So at times that's photographs being used. We have pictures of the rescue happening.
The conditions of the 5 men and 3 women are worsening.
There was one person who was hypothermic.
Volunteers, including Pete Ortiz, pulled the people on board one by one.
Because, I mean, some of them had a shocked look on their face.
It's cool when you can have a shoot on a boat, because how many times can you do that? But it's hard to shoot on a boat. You know, you're only out there for a certain amount of time, and you have to work with those confines. There's always some kind of parameter in a story you have to work with. And on this day, it was being on a boat, having a small boat of space. Let's say the audio of just an engine roaring, and we're moving at fast speeds. There's a bit of wind hitting the camera. Being mindful of your sound, the visuals, that happens every story, and you have to work around that. But there are creative workarounds too, where, you know, sometimes we threw a GoPro in the water to kind of simulate the sensation of being in the water.
A moment later, the vessel disappears beneath the choppy waves.
But you make it work, and that's kind of the fun challenge of this job is every story has its unique set of parameters, and I'm gonna problem solve creatively, artistically, I hope, to still bring it to life working within those parameters. And I loved how that story turned out. I love knowing I got to spend precious time with these people as they open their arms and let me into their world. And I'm filming something that I really hope reflects their experience as a team that's been doing this for so many years. And when you see the story come on the TV, I think there's a little bit of magic underneath it, knowing I helped them share their story. And hopefully I did it as best as I could. And they see themselves represented in it as they do their job every single day.
Our business is really a big difference in a day.
So there was a young man who died in a car accident. He lived with his mother and his grandmother, and the one thing he really wanted to do was save up enough money to pave his mother's driveway. A very simple gift for a son to give his mother. Unfortunately, he didn't have the opportunity to do that.
When something like this happens, we all band together and support him because we love one another immensely.
Well, his friends and the community really came together. They reached out and they said, let's pave this grieving mother's driveway anyway.
I mean, it's crazy that all these kids showed up to help us this early on spring break.
Paving company was so touched by the gesture, they said, look.
I just texted her back and said, hey, it would typically be about this much, but we'll just do it for free.
Being with this station and being surrounded by the talent that we have, it constantly encourages you and pushes you to want to improve every single day. And so that story was an opportunity, again, for me to use all my skills. The big ENG camera, a GoPro, my iPhone. I had a tar truck roll over my iPhone just so I could get the gears of the underneath the truck spinning in just the right way. I had it move gravel, and I had my phone up so close to it, I had to be careful that it didn't fall on top of it, but just so you could really hear the crunch of the gravel and you could see this wall of earth just fly towards the camera. When I get to do stories like that, and when you hear someone plop down a rock, and you really hear that clank, when you see the steam rising off that hot tar before this roller kind of smooth it all out, it's almost like you're really there. You're putting someone in that situation, or at least that's what I try to do when I shoot.
I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, we did get to meet Jelly Roll recently.
Yeah, I'm Elizabeth Holmes. It's a pleasure. This is Curtis, big fan. A big fan.
Appreciate you, Kurt.
I got to go to Chesterfield Jail with Elizabeth Holmes, and we got to witness Jelly Roll actually making a visit to their jail's HARP program, which is for recovery for addicts that they have within the jail there. It's a really great program that he was aware of through their TikTok page, where they play music.
Somebody save me from myself.
So he became aware of it and wanted to visit.
You feel change in there. You feel love, man. Jail is dark. It is a very dark place, and I have never seen a jail room lit up more than the HARP program both times I've been here.
He had visited once before, but this time we were invited in to be there when he visited. So that was a really cool one, just to really see the looks on the inmates' faces there as Jelly Roll was in there singing songs with them and listening to music, and you could really see the power of the music really hitting them all. They look at him as like a modern day Johnny Cash, is like really speaking to them.
Oh, I hear you, and we relate to it so much, man. And I mean, thank you for everything you do.
And telling their stories through music, and like just everyone just singing and having a great time, and it was just a really powerful moment to really be a part of there. So that was really cool.
This is crazy.
People were in shock. People were in disbelief that this was happening to this elementary school. I saw people in tears. One distinct gentleman that I remember talking to, he told me that he went to Fox Elementary School when he was a child. It was something I didn't expect, and it was early in my time here in Richmond.
It's just a tragic loss to the community.
And it was a night I won't ever forget. I remember turning down Robson and just seeing like a wall of smoke and it being so thick and so distinctive.
This is crazy.
People were in shock. People were in disbelief that this was happening to this elementary school. I saw people in tears. One distinct gentleman that I remember talking to, he told me that he went to Fox Elementary School when he was a child. I would imagine a lot of people were just here just looking at it because it's something that you just can't ignore. And for me as a storyteller, and most importantly as a journalist, I can't ignore this.
It's been burning for about an hour, I know, at least.
I'm really humbled just having people just talk to me with something like this.
Looks like this thing is just getting started in a way. Woo! I hope the school isn't gone.
Scary situation, and it's there was a lot of unknowns at the time, and I just did what I had to do and just talk to people.
It's a historic property. The kids alone, what are they going to do on Monday when they have to go back to school? That's all that comes to my mind.
So I took it upon myself to stay there, maybe up to 2 hours, and I stayed maybe an hour and some change afterwards just to produce a piece for the community. I mean, I want to say it's for the show and it's for me, but it's for them, and it's something that people are going to wake up to and just be in disbelief that this school, this historic school, was gone.
This scene would be described as chaotic right now from multiple people who are out here. I'm told from Crime Insider sources that at least 5 people have been injured. At least 4 of those people have been shot.
My first day basically starting as a photog at this job, I came into work like a normal day, and we get a call from our news desk saying that there's been a shooting at this high school graduation ceremony, and I was told to go with a reporter right away, and I was one of the first people on scene. And so I think that's one of those moments, though, where I really kind of felt the franticness and the chaos, but also it's really important to kind of keep your cool as the one doing your job, so then other people around you aren't freaking out, but also so then you can be aware of your surroundings and to try to get those, moments of maybe someone getting wheeled out or something like that, where, if you're not in control, then the situation itself isn't going to be in control.
This is supposed to be a joyous day when our kids walk the stage and get their diploma, which is what they all did here for Huguenot today. and walked out the doors into their families and friends' arms, taking pictures. And then this tragedy occurred.
When I think back about the fact that that was my first day and that's, video that's going to be kind of probably having a lasting legacy within the Richmond area, puts me at a loss for words, because in sometimes of what we do, we get kind of desensitized to all the things that we're covering because most of the time they're not happy. But also it's important to be able to do those, breaking news stories about something that might have been tragic in a community, so that it's not forgotten. And so by being a part of that and being a lasting legacy with that through being a photojournalist here is kind of, I guess, one of my favorite parts about this job, is that even in those terrible moments, you're still, providing a justice for people to know about, what's happening.
I had a dream that I saw my mom on a news station. So I called my dad and I said, wasn't Mom on TV adopting a dog once? And he was like, yeah, I think she was. And I said, well, I'm gonna reach out to the news station and see if they have that video. And my husband immediately was just like, they're not gonna have that video, it's too old.
That was a woman that on a random email to our station reached out to us saying that she believed that her mother was on TV on our station. That was it. She just wanted to see the tape of her mother.
I knew deep down that it was a long shot.
What made it so powerful was that her mother actually committed suicide years later, and that was the only video that there was of her mom. You're gonna get me choked up.
Who knows what I could have said or what I could have done in that moment to maybe change her mind. Literally, this is all I have of her. Just because back in that day, the parents took all the pictures and they would ask me, well, do you have any videos of your mom? Do you have videos when you were a kid? I'm like, no, we didn't have that back then. Not everyone had a huge video camera, back in the day.
Our executive producer, Mike Bergazzi, dug through the tapes and everything, found this tape. We digitized it, actually went to North Carolina to meet with her so she could see the tape.
These animals will now be properly cared for. Most of the new owners were aware of their past mistreatment.
So we're gonna go take her straight home, give her a bath, make her feel part of the family. Anyway, Josh, she's gorgeous, isn't she?
In Hanover County, I'm Jay Ariano, WTBR News Channel 6.
Oh my goodness. That was hers. Wow. Oh my goodness, just to hear her voice. Oh my gosh.
That was just a really, really powerful moment, and that, to capture that and be able to share that story, that meant a lot.
Words can't explain how excited I am right now just to see her and hear her talk. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Wow.
Anybody else watching it, that's another one of those, that didn't really matter as much. It was for her and her kids just to have that memory that they wouldn't have had if another photojournalist, didn't record this, and the reporter didn't pick her out of the whole parking lot of people and talk to her.
And watching the video, I see her alive and speaking. And that's almost like it was yesterday. Just to see her breathing and happy and living her life, it's worth everything.
Another one of those examples of it's just another day at the office for us, but this is lasting impressions forever that really means a lot to the families and the different members of our community that we are highlighting. That lives on forever because they captured it that day. It's either going to be something that's the best day of someone's life or it's the worst day of their life.
Those are the situations where it's even more important to be a voice for the voiceless, to be a listening ear when they're speaking, and I mean really, really listen.
And I was holding him in my arms, telling him, Papa, no, don't down me, Papa, don't down me.
a lot of times when we're going out and doing this job, it's either going to be something that's the best day of someone's life or it's the worst day of their life. There's not really a lot of in between.
A lot of times I work with situations that are kind of depressing, but at the same time, it's something that needs to be caught.
You run into scenes where you have to cover it because this is news that can impact people and does impact people, but it can range. It can be fires, it can be stabbings, shootings.
I've always said that I don't want to parachute in and parachute out. They're people first and not characters. They're people. These people matter, their voices matter.
I mean, there is, unfortunately, a lot of evil in the world and a lot of bad in the world.
Terrible human being. You destroyed me, you destroyed my family.
It got to the point where if I would just let it happen, it would go away faster.
And a lot of times, the people that are affected by the bad don't get the justice that they deserve. And you know, it's one of those things where we can do our part to share their voice and do our part to say, hey, like this is wrong and this needs to be addressed.
Those are the situations where it's even more important to be a voice for the voiceless, to be a listening ear when they're speaking, and I mean really, really listen.
And I was holding him in my arms, telling him, Papa, no, don't down me, Papa, don't down me.
Because it's so easy to gloss over it. And when you gloss over it, that's when people stop talking. That's when people stop caring. I care every single day about the job that I do.
Sad stories, they're part of life, and but they also give you an appreciation for what you have and helps you keep things in perspective and not sweat the small stuff. So I don't like doing those stories. Some of them are really important, and I'm grateful for the perspective that it gives me.
That's always tough, but at the same time, it can start out as a low point for people and what they're going through right there. And by telling their story and doing what we can do on our side of things, sometimes it can help lift them up out of that spot.
I generally care, and a lot of my coworkers generally care too, and I get a lot of inspiration from them. And I really hope that people understand that. I mean, I'm trying to let their voices be heard.
What was it, Mr. Rogers, who said, you know, look for the people responding? So, you know, for every tragedy out there, you know, try to be the yin yang to that.
But after the fact, when a story airs, it is so rewarding to know that meant something to someone, that they felt understood, that their voice was shared. And if we can do that, then we're doing our job, to be there for people, to be there for our community where we live, and let them know that people care about them. We're trying to share people's voices, their ideas, their perspective.
It's truly an honor to be able to just share those stories, and I hope we do it justice.
When we can elevate their voice, it can magnify that good to something truly great.
You sit down with them and you just have a conversation.
These people matter, their voices matter.
There's people out there that truly deserve to have their stories told.
I worked on a story where I visited a senior living home in Chesapeake Bay for a gentleman who worked for NASA as a photographer for nearly 50 years. I think sometimes people can feel forgotten in the work they do, in the life that they've lived. We highlighted his work near his 50 years at NASA as a photographer. And when the story was airing, we heard from his wife, and they set up a whole watch party in that senior living home for this story to air. And we got a text back from him saying, I felt like a celebrity that day. It was really meaningful to me with this shoot to highlight this gentleman's work and make him feel like a superstar.
I'm gonna go slow! Watch out, for God's sake!
My reporter and I, we had the opportunity to interview a gentleman who's
103.
Looking at him, never would have guessed. Fighter pilot, World War II, all he wanted to do was to go fast.
That's me as a flying cadet when I went through flight school.
Had so much life to him, and just hearing his story, I mean, this man witnessed the atomic bomb.
And the thing went off. And I was in the plane looking with a double shield on me, everything. And it was the brightest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Getting to tell that story of his, it's something I'll hold dear and close to my heart. It's the best thing in the world.
For me, getting the word out about the need for foster parents in our community.
Hello.
Definitely something that I feel very strongly about, and I love that CBS 6 in November does a hand to hold. I think we showcase a child every day.
You have it in you to be a great foster parent.
The wife and I went through the process to become foster parents. So we fostered our kids and then we adopted them back in 2019. We have a 7-year-old and a 16-year-old. Holy moly.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1 and 2.
You asked me to do the commercial last year, and so everybody thinks that's my kid. That's not my kid. I got 2, and that's plenty. I'm good. Me dancing out there, was able to get 1 or 2 kids a home for the holidays or something. I mean, yeah, that's great.
1 and 2.
Go be a foster parent. Go be a foster parent. Yeah.
One that always sticks with me is there's a restaurant called Pops that had seating of 6 seats, but during COVID, all the restaurants had to cut their seating by half.
Our business has been down 80% from last year.
I cried many nights thinking I worked so hard to get here, and then it's tough. It really is.
It was something that we can go out there and really highlight, this great little community staple. And after it aired, like the next day there was a line going all the way out of this restaurant, and they had told us that you saved our restaurant, and I'm just happy I could just do my small part in that,
It's a very awesome responsibility, and I try not to take it for granted every day. When you tell their story the right way, you can really change someone's life, and that's really awesome.
The fact that you can help people when they feel like they have nowhere else to go or nowhere else to turn.
You can make someone's day. Maybe you make them believe in themselves a little bit more.
I'm glad I work for a place that understands, you have to be a human first, journalist second.
It's one of the things I'm grateful for, to be able to do this job, because sometimes it doesn't feel like a job. It just feels like going out and having fun.
It's the little good we do along the way that really matters, And I hope the little good we do with every story that we do, I hope that matters along the way.